Hey, this is Tom from the West Coast Ramble, and this is my top 10 Gretsch guitar players. Well, if you're watching this channel, you probably like Gretsch guitars. And you probably have a list of guys that are your favorite players, and they might not be on this list. I picked my list because they're all great players, but they also look really cool. And they had a big impression on me growing up, and even today when I see them like with that guitar, it looks so cool. Now, whether it's a 6120, a White Falcon, or a Duo Jet, they all have their place, and they all look cool. Anyways, here's my top 10 Gretsch guitar players, starting with number 10. Oh, and by the way, please like and subscribe West Coast Ramble. Really helps us out. Number 10 is Poison Ivy from the Cramps. Now, I first saw them live, back in the 80s. They were playing with Social Distortion, and the curtain opens and the Cramps come out, and here's Poison Ivy. She's like wearing her bikini thing, and she starts walking up real slow and seductively with this big old yellow Gretsch. It's like she's wearing this guitar. It's huge, but she played it really well, and it's got that, it's got that twangy Cramps sound. And she's a moderate player, I'll be honest, she's not a ripper, but she looks so cool with that guitar, and I thought well, if she was wearing a Strat or a Telecaster, it wouldn't be the same thing. It's like the guitar made her look. So with that, I got number 10 is Poison Ivy with the Cramps. Number 9 is Billy Duffy from The Cult. Now, if you ever listen to The Cult, it's really basically just rock and roll, but it looks so cool because Billy Duffy had his White Falcon, his Gretsch White Falcon. And Billy Duffy, he's a masculine-looking dude. He's got this huge White Falcon, and it seems like he's battling this thing. He's holding it, but he's making it work. And the sounds that came out of it were also different. It was rock and roll, but it had like a touch of that vintage Gretsch playing. You could hear the Gretsch in it, and it was his unique sound coming with his unique look. And it's all because of that Gretsch White Falcon. I don't think he could have pulled it off with another guitar. Number 8 is Reverend Horton Heat. And I've seen that guy a couple times, and he's always ripping. Just a great, representative of Gretsch rockabilly. He plays that, sort of that faster punk, and I've heard him rip on just basic rockabilly stuff too. He's a great picker, and and that Gretsch is the tool of the trade for him. So any guy who digs rockabilly is going to have his Reverend Horton Heat collection. To me, he's the quintessential guy who mixed punk and rockabilly with that Gretsch. He owns that space. Number 7 is Billy Zoom from X. Now, I grew up in Los Angeles when I was a kid, and I loved Billy Zoom and I loved X. Everybody around there did. I don't know what it's like around the rest of the country, but it was like the way Billy Zoom played. He had a sparkly-looking silver jet that he had, and he would just stand with his legs spread apart. He wouldn't move all over the stage. He just stood there looking cool, but the guitar had all this sparkles on it, and the guitar kind of did its own talking. It was like it was got magic in his hands, and the way it sparkled, it lit up when he played. And also the fact, I know a lot of other guys play like a Duo Jet and a solid body Gretsch, but he's the one who really put it on the map for me. Like when I'm all, whoa, he's got a Gretsch too? That's cool. And he's like a rockabilly guy. And I thought, wow, man, I guess that kind of solidified that Gretsch is the guitar the rockabilly do these days. So number 7 is Billy Zoom. Number 6, we're going back to Duane Eddy. If you're a guitar player, I'm sure you know who Duane Eddy is. And he's one of those guys that put the Gretsch on the map. As an instrumental guy, he really worked at that guitar. And he also influenced a lot of other players coming down the pike.
2 watts, and we were going to do Rebel Rouser by Duane Eddy, my idol.
Wanda Jackson, I love. And this is a great one. Duane Eddy, coolest.
I've been listening to this guy since I was a little kid. I first saw him on American Bandstand. Dick Clark referred to him in a certain way, and I want to introduce him the same way. The golden twang of Mr. Duane Eddy.
Duane Eddy passed away last year at the age of 86. He's considered a guitar legend, and he did a lot of his best work with the Gretsch. And number 5 is Bo Diddley. Now, Bo Diddley had a tone all his own. His guitar just looks so cool. It's unlike anyone else's guitar, and he had his own way of playing it. And he was truly one of the first rock and roll players. And kind of like other players, like I said, it seemed like, he was dancing with that guitar. He made it part of himself. And it was all part, if he would have had if he would have had a Strat or Telecaster or something else like that, or a Les Paul, I don't think it would have looked as cool. And Bo Diddley came towards rock and roll in a different way. And his guitar was different, and it rocked. He was like one of the innovators. And I'm happy to say he was doing it with a Gretsch. Number 4 is Eddie Cochran. And you knew he was coming up. He's number 4 for me, and he's got that 6120. And of course his music is great. But I'd have to say it's like all those pictures, just his album covers, beautiful color with top of his 6120 popping out there, and he's on The Girl Can't Help It. He's rocking his guitar, and in the other movie, Go Johnny Go, he's sitting there dancing with his guitar, and it was like, you know, he really worked that guitar for everything it was worth. He was really working it. It wasn't just an instrument, it was like a prop to him. And I think with the Gretsch guitar, you can really make it a prop, and it just enhanced your rock and roll experience. So, yeah, I'd have to say number 4 is Eddie Cochran. Maybe you think he's a little bit higher down the list, but we could talk about it. Now, before we carry on, I've got a couple of honorable mentions. And guys are probably going through your mind thinking, hey, why didn't they talk about this guy? Well, here they are. My first honorable mention, in no particular order, is Daryl Hiram. He's a great rockabilly picker, been playing out a lot of stuff, and some of his best videos, in my opinion, are on Bop Flicks. And he's the quintessential rockabilly guitar player who plays that Gretsch, and he does it just perfect. Another honorable mention is Malcolm Young from AC/DC, rhythm guitar player. He passed away a couple years ago, but he played a Jet Firebird. Solid rhythm player and far from rockabilly, but once again, he was playing his Gretsch. Another honorable mention is Richie Valens. In some of the album covers, he doesn't have a Gretsch, but in the movie Go Johnny Go, he's playing Ooh My Head with his Gretsch guitar in black and white. So you can't see how the orange, beautiful orange, and he's a young dude playing rock and roll with his big old Gretsch guitar. He's another one that put it on the map for me. My last honorable mention is Matthew Ashman. He played for Bow Wow Wow and Adam and the Ants, and he had a Gretsch White Falcon. And once again, that guy knew how to work it and all that. When I was a kid watching his videos, he just knew how to hold that guitar just right. Yeah, to me, I love the look of that and the way that guy played that thing. So that takes us back to my top 10, and I believe we're on number 3. Number 3 on the top 10 Gretsch players is Chet Atkins. And I know you thought this was coming, but Chet Atkins, he's got his own Chet Atkins model. The guy's a great picker. What more can you say about Chet Atkins? He wasn't playing rock and roll. He really wasn't playing rockabilly. He was just playing his own Chet Atkins style that everybody wants to emulate. It'd be hard to say Gretsch without saying Chet Atkins in the same sentence. But if you go back, most players worth their salt would have gone back through their Chet Atkins phase. But he was the guy who really put Gretsch on the map in the beginning. So that leads me to number 2. It's George Harrison of the Beatles. And he played a couple different Gretches. He's got that big old Gretsch, and he's kind of a smaller guy holding that thing up. He's holding it all high, but man, he made it sound so cool. And I like the fact that John was playing a Rickenbacker, and that smaller guitar in contrast to the Gretsch that George had. To me, that always looked cool, just the way the two guitars went off each other. And totally different tones, too. And, I would say that George wasn't like he was going up and down the neck with it, but he always played like really cool licks. Like that guy really knew how to play rock and roll and get the most out of his Gretsch. And of course, he was influenced by the guys, just a couple years before him. So number 2 is George Harrison. Number 1 on my top 10 list of Gretsch players, and you probably guessed it, it's Brian Setzer, I know that. But you gotta admit, he's like the best Gretsch player, the best Gretsch ambassador. He's got different color guitars, different looking guitars that all say Brian Setzer on them. And man, the guy deserves it, man. That guy just really put that thing on the map. And there's no other showman like him playing that big old guitar. And he's another little guy. Like for some reason, little guys seem to just really go awesome with this guitar because it's all big, but it's like you're wrestling this thing and you're making it work for you. And every time I saw Brian Setzer on stage doing that, that's what it looked like, man. He was just working that thing, And when you see him jumping around like that, how can he hit all those notes at the same time? And he's using the big speed tremolo, and he just works that whole thing, and just is so entertaining. That's what the whole guitar is for, is to entertain people. And he uses every bit of it, sort of like the American Indians. They would kill a buffalo and they would eat all the meat, use the hide. They would use the bones for something. I'd say like Brian Setzer, he's like the American Indian with his Gretsch. He would use all the parts of it, the strings, the look, the tremolo, the sweat dripping off on the guitar. It just looks so cool. That's why Brian Setzer is number 1 on my list. He might be number 1 on your list, but let me know. Did I get the list wrong? I'd like to know. That was my top 10 list of Gretsch guitar players. If you have a minute, please like and subscribe or check out some of our other videos. Thanks for watching West Coast Ramble. We'll see you.